Being able to write strong, clear, and concise sentences is essential to the type of writing we will do in this unit. So let's take a moment to dissect sentences and clarify some potentially confusing grammar lingo. A sentence is simply a group of words that contains a subject and a predicate and can stand on its own. We're all pretty good with subjects. That's what the sentence is about, or who is doing something in the sentence. The predicate is simply what is being said about the subject or what the subject is doing. So, in the sentence, Gino bought flowers for Tina, Gino is the subject and what Gino did, bought flowers for Tina, is the predicate. Now let's look at clauses. A clause is a group of related words that has a subject and a predicate. Now, hold on. The definition of a clause sounds a lot like the definition of a sentence, but it's missing one key part. Can stand on its own. Some clauses can stand alone, but some can't. Let's look at some examples. Here are two clauses. Both have subjects and predicates, but one can stand alone as a complete thought and one can't. The word when in the second example makes the clause not able to stand alone. It no longer expresses a complete thought. We now need some more information, or specifically, more information in the form of an independent clause. Now we have a dependent clause and an independent clause. So to recap, a clause is a group of related words. A clause has both a subject and a predicate, and there are two types of clauses. An independent clause has a subject and a predicate and can stand alone, just like a sentence. A dependent clause cannot stand alone as a sentence because it does not express a complete thought. Because dependent and independent clauses both have subjects and predicates, changing from one to the other is as easy as adding or removing a subordinate conjunction. A subordinate conjunction is simply a word like when, until, after, whenever, or because that introduces a dependent clause. Basically, it's one of those words that takes a perfectly capable independent clause and makes it dependent. Here is a list of common subordinating conjunctions. To make this dependent clause an independent clause, just remove that subordinating conjunction. To make this independent clause a dependent clause, just add a subordinating conjunction. A dependent clause is not a sentence because it can't stand on its own, so you may hear it referred to as a sentence fragment. A dependent clause is one type of sentence fragment, but there are others too. Let's return to Hogwarts with Harry for another example. One of these is a dependent clause sort of sentence fragment, and the other is just a plain old fragment. Do you know which is which? Remember, a clause must have a subject and a predicate. The first example has a subject, he, and a verb predicate, played Quidditch, but the second example has no subject doing no verb. That's just a plain old fragment. Both a dependent clause and a regular sentence fragment are incorrect to use by themselves, and both can be fixed the same way. Just add an independent clause. Remember, if you have an incomplete thought, even if it has a subject and a predicate, you have a fragment. Fix up your fragments and dependent clauses by always connecting them to an independent clause for strong, clear, and effective sentences.